I'm a AAA-rated executive protection agent. And you're the most wanted hitman in the world. My job is to keep you out of harm's way.
I'll be safer on my own.
I hope they kill him, I really do.
Quiet on the set!
This is Michael Faulkner, and it is showtime at the August 15th, 2017 edition of the Weekly Podioplex, brought to you on the Chronic Rift Network. This week's birthdays include Sebastian Stan, Marvel's Winter Soldier, Halle Berry, Mila Kunis, Jags Catherine Bell, Jennifer Lawrence, Ben Batman Affleck, comedian Steve Carell, director James Cameron, Robert De Niro, one of Marvel's Hulks, Edward Norton, and Christian Slater, who was once a background player on a Star Trek film. Starting with the box office report, it is hard to tell which is scarier, Annabelle or The Summer's Decline. At number 10 is Atomic Blonde, down 3 from 7th. At number 9 is new release The Glass Castle, premiering to $4.7 million. That's below expectations, but it played well with audiences for an A- cinema score. Critics, on the other hand, only gave it about a 48% positive reception. In 8th is Kidnapped, down 3 from 5th. In 7th is Spider-Man Homecoming, down 1 from 6th. And finishing off this week's bottom 5 is The Emoji Movie, down 3 from 3rd. The top 5 this week begin with Girls Trip, down 1 from 4th with $6.5 million out to a total of $97.1 million. In 4th place is last week's winner, The Dark Tower, dropping 3 spots with $7.8 million and a new total of $34.3 million. In 3rd place is new release The Nut Job 2, Nutty by Nature, debuting to $8.3 million. So, yeah, that's the worst opening for a film playing in over 4,000 theaters, beating the record by nearly $16 million. That record was previously held by The Emoji Movie from a couple weeks ago, and before that, it was The Mummy from earlier this year. The good news is that it received a B+ cinema score from opening day audiences, but that's immediately countered by an 11% reception by critics. Holding position from last week is Dunkirk, adding another $10.9 million to a total of $153.2 million. And in a week where the 3rd place film set a worst opening record, this week's winner is Annabelle Creation, premiering to $35 million. Now, for the Conjuring franchise, that's actually a pretty good debut. Yes, it is the lowest of the 4 films, but it's only about $7 million below the opening for the first film. So, much like the other films in this franchise, with a really low budget, pretty much any earnings are gravy. Opening day audiences gave Annabelle Creation a B cinema score, which matches the first Annabelle film, and comes in just below the 2 Conjuring films. Critics handed it a 68% approval rating. And that's it for the minor silver lining to an otherwise disappointing weekend. The top 12 amassed $103.8 million. That's pretty much a blockbuster opening for one film. It is 6% below last week's performance and marks the 4th lowest weekend of 2017. In fact, the 2017 summer movie season is down 12% against last year. Let's close out the box office report with what was winning in years gone by. 5 years ago in 2012, The Expendables 2 took number 1 with $28.6 million. 10 years ago in 2007, Superbad won the weekend with $33 million. 20 years ago in 1997, Copland was the winner with $13.5 million. 30 years ago in 1987, Stakeout took the title with $5.6 million, reaching number 1 in its second weekend of release. And 40 years ago, in 1977, The Kentucky Fried Movie won the box office crown with $4.8 million. After that bout of bad news, how about a palate cleanser? The box office premieres for August 18th are adult comedies. This week's headliner is The Hitman's Bodyguard, an action comedy starring Ryan Reynolds, Samuel L. Jackson, and Gary Oldman.
Go with God. This man's killed over 150 people.
250, easy.
The world's top bodyguard gets a new client, a hitman who must testify at the International Court of Justice. They must put their differences aside and work together to make it to the trial on time. Both the Green Band and the Red Band trailer made me laugh my butt off. Ryan Reynolds and Samuel L. Jackson together in this film, they have tremendous chemistry together. The Hitman's Bodyguard is rated R. The other title is Logan Lucky, a crime comedy starring Channing Tatum, Adam Driver, and Daniel Craig.
Jimmy, I gotta let you go.
Daddy! I have full custody.
I'm getting a lawyer.
With what money?
I saw you have a robbery to-do list.
Charlotte Motor Speedway.
It's the biggest race of the year.
I know how they move the money.
The only guy who knows about blowing up bank vaults is Joe Bang.
I am incarcerated.
We got a plan to get you out. We need the computer whiz.
I know everything there is to know about computers, okay?
Do you?
All the Twitters, I know them.
Let's blow this thing.
You thought I was gonna use dynamite?
Yeah, I kinda did.
We're gonna do this for your daughter.
You Logans mustn't be as simple-minded as people say.
People say that.
Now get back here. So no bacon. I said no bacon.
Two brothers attempt to pull off a heist during a NASCAR race in North Carolina. Daniel Craig with a deep southern accent. Oh my goodness. Logan Lucky is rated PG-13. There are also 7 titles on this week's limited slate, and you can find all of those listed in the show notes. Next up is a look at the home entertainment slate for the week of August 15th. I'll kick things off with new release on DVD and Blu-ray, and that list has 2 titles. The first is Alien Covenant, a sci-fi horror film starring Michael Fassbender, Catherine Waterston, and Billy Crudup. Bound for a remote planet on the far side of the galaxy, the crew of the colony ship Covenant discovers what they think is an uncharted paradise, but it's actually a dark, dangerous world whose sole inhabitant is a synthetic David, survivor of the doomed Prometheus expedition from the film of the same name. Alien Covenant is rated R. The other title is Chuck, a biographical sports drama starring Liev Schreiber, Naomi Watts, and Elizabeth Moss. This is a drama inspired by the life of heavyweight boxer Chuck Wepner, the real-life inspiration for Rocky. Chuck is rated R. Splashing on over to new releases on digital video, there's one title, and that one is Baywatch, a comedy starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Zac Efron, and Alexandra Daddario. Devoted lifeguard Mitch Buchanan butts heads with a brash new recruit, and together they uncover a local criminal plot that threatens the future of the Bay. Baywatch is rated R. Moving right along to TV on DVD and Blu-ray, we start things there with Once Upon a Time Season 6 from 2016, starring Jennifer Goodwin, Jennifer Morrison, and Lana Parrilla. After Regina crushes the heart of her dark half, it appears that Storybrooke will finally enjoy an era of tranquility. Right. This reprieve is short-lived when the evil queen re-emerges and wreaks a level of havoc and terror that makes her previous cruelties pale by comparison. Desperate to right her counterpart's wrongs, Regina fights the ultimate battle against her nemesis, but can one survive if the other is destroyed? Meanwhile, Galt's attempt to win back Belle before their child is born has heartbreaking consequences. Snow and David must face a new and even more insidious curse, and just as Emma begins to envision a happy ending with Hook, she discovers she's destined, as the savior, to die at the hands of a sword-wielding assassin, unless she can somehow change her fate. The second TV title is a twofer. We have The Blacklist Season 4 from 2016 and The Blacklist Redemption Season 1 from 2016. The Blacklist stars James Spader, Megan Boone, and Diego Klattenhoff. Former government agent Raymond Red Reddington has eluded capture for decades, but he suddenly surrenders to the FBI with an offer to help catch a terrorist under the condition that he speaks only to Elizabeth Liz Keene, a young FBI profiler who's just barely out of Quantico. In Season 4 of this series, Liz works to resolve the mystery of her lost childhood, but every day without the truth holds more danger for her and her family. Meanwhile, the task force reels from Liz's resurrection and friendships are fractured. Betrayed by those closest to him, Reddington's specific moral code demands justice, all the while battling an army of new and unexpected blacklisters. Included with the multi-pack version of Season 4 is Season 1 of Blacklist Redemption, starring Famke Janssen, Ryan Eggold, and Edie Gathegi, as covert operative Tom Keene joins forces with Susan Scotty Hargrave, the brilliant and cunning chief of a covert mercenary organization that solves problems that are too dangerous for the government to handle. Number 3 on the TV list is DC's Legends of Tommorrow, Season 2 from 2016, starring Victor Garber, Brandon Routh, and Katie Lotz. Their time is now. DC's Legends of Tommorrow amps up the firepower for Season 2 of the superhero team-up series by enlisting both a league and a legion of new characters to join the legendary crew of the Wave Rider. Charged with protecting the timeline from temporal aberrations, changes to history that spawn potentially catastrophic consequences, the Legends reassemble with the addition of historian Nate Haywood, also known as Citizen Steel, and Justice Society of America member Amaya Jiwe, also known as Vixen. And yet, for every force of good, there is an opposing force of darkness. In Season 2, the Legends of Tommorrow face off against the first ever team of DC supervillains, the Legion of Doom, including Malcolm Merlyn, Damian Dark, Captain Cold, and the Reverse Flash. After saving the world from Vandal Savage and the corrupt Time Masters, the Legends are now charged with protecting time, past, present, and future, taking them across history and up against the power of the Spear of Destiny, a threat unlike any humanity has ever known. The final TV title is Riverdale, Season 1 from 2016, starring KJ Apa, Cole Sprouse, and Camila Mendez. Very loosely based on the classic comic book series, things are not always what you expect in Riverdale. As the new school year begins, the town is reeling from the tragic death of high school golden boy Jason Blossom. The summer's events made all-American teen Archie Andrews realize that he wants to pursue a career in music, but his fractured friendship with Jughead Jones and Josie McCoy's focus on her own band leaves Archie without a mentor. Meanwhile, girl next door Betty Cooper is not ready to reveal her true feelings for Archie, and new student Veronica Lodge has an undeniable spark with her crush. And then there's Cheryl Blossom, Riverdale's Queen Bee, who stirs up trouble amongst Archie, Betty, and Veronica. But is Cheryl hiding something about the mysterious death of her twin brother, Jason? I'll wrap up the home entertainment slate with Blu-rays from the past, and this week I bring you one title. That one is Pet Semetary, a horror thriller starring Denise Crosby, Fred Gwynne, and Miko Hughes. For most families, moving is a new beginning, but for the Creeds, it could be the beginning of the end. Behind their home in Maine is a terrible secret that holds the power of life after death, and when tragedy strikes, the threat of that power soon becomes undeniable. Pet Semetary is rated R. After this brief break for about a shameless podcast cross-promotion, the Weekly Podioplex will continue.
Hi, this is the Mike Pilot.
And this is Brian Young with the Full of Sith podcast.
And let me tell you something about Full of Sith. It is one of the best Star Wars podcasts you're ever going to hear. Wait, just podcasts in general, but it's Star Wars related. You should listen.
And once those droids take control of the surface, they will take control of you.
Full of Sith Star Wars podcast. You can check us out on iTunes or fullofsith.com. May the Force be with you. Always.
And welcome back to the Weekly Podioplex. I'm Denise with your Quick Flicks. First up, Hannibal revival conversations have now formally begun. Oh, please let this be a thing that's going to happen. Hannibal TV series creator Brian Fuller has revealed that discussions are currently underway to potentially revive the series. 2 years ago, Hannibal aired its series finale after 3 seasons on the air. It was the worst thing to happen to television since The Sopranos cut to black. I cried. Despite receiving universal acclaim from critics and audiences alike, the show, unfortunately, couldn't sustain enough viewers for NBC to justify keeping it going, and so the network ended up canceling the program in 2015. Still, Fuller, as well as stars Hugh Dancy and Mads Mikkelsen, have expressed intentions to bring back Hannibal at some point in the future, potentially 4 or 5 years after the series' initial cancellation. There were originally talks about continuing the story as a movie, but how would that work? And it seems that Fuller would prefer returning to a TV series format. This does not mean they have plans to go back to NBC, however. There are plenty of other options out there, and the producer has now revealed that they are currently looking at those options. In a recent discussion with fans, he revealed that De Laurentiis has officially opened discussions to potentially revive Hannibal, though he didn't say who or which network service they were talking to. Please let Hannibal come back to television. It was such a good show, and Game of Thrones will be over soon, and I just really need boobs and murder and ridiculously gorgeous food in my life. Also, there's a Hannibal cookbook if anyone is interested. It's available on Amazon and features recipes based on the dishes you saw in the show. They're really pretty. Up next, the BPRD has been confirmed to appear in the upcoming Hellboy reboot. As we all know, Guillermo del Toro announced earlier this year that there was 0 chance of him completing his planned Hellboy trilogy, starring Ron Perlman as the eponymous character. So instead, Millennium Films has partnered with the original film's producers Larry Gordon and Lloyd Levin to reboot the series with Neil Marshall directing and David Harbour replacing Perlman as Big Red. The reboot will be based on a script co-written by Hellboy creator and super nice guy Mike Mignola and screenwriters Andrew Cosby and Christopher Golden. Aside from the main players involved, as well as the planned filming schedule, not much else is known about the reboot. We are getting some details, however, like how the film is utilizing its R rating to tell a much more gruesome horror story than Del Toro's films, and how Mignola has revealed that, in addition to including the Blood Queen, played by Mila Jovovich, the reboot will also include the BPRD team. Yay! Mignola recently talked about the reboot in an interview with Newsarama, confirming that the movie will feature the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense team previously featured in Del Toro's movies, though he didn't reveal which characters will be included. He said, "The BPRD figures into the movie. I don't want to say who is and who isn't in the movie. I think it's fair to say, however, that the primary focus is Hellboy and not a BPRD team movie." In addition to revealing the BPRD's inclusion, Mignola also explained his level of involvement in the reboot, saying he has less involvement in this film than he did with Del Toro's first two movies. He does say that this new movie is more in line with his original vision for the character, however. He said, "I was super involved in Guillermo del Toro's movies way more than this one. In those, I worked in pre-production and I was on set a lot of the time. As time went on, he and I had different ideas on what should happen. In this new movie, I don't have much hands-on involvement. I'm not doing any concept art, I'm doing consulting, but I think from day one in discussions about the look and feel of the new movie, the director seems to be very much closer to the tone of the vision I wanted it to be. How close this movie is going to come to Mike's original vision remains to be seen. We'll keep you guys posted as more news comes out." Next, big happenings for Tim Miller. The Deadpool director has been tapped to direct Neuromancer. A seminal novel of the cyberpunk genre, Neuromancer introduced a number of concepts that would later become science fiction staples, including outlaw computer hackers, the idea of cyberspace, and the Matrix. The plot is a mashup of noir conventions and speculative dystopian science fiction about a disgraced hacker who, after being saved from his dead-end existence by a modified street samurai and going to work for a shady ex-military man, becomes a cog in a labyrinthine mystery involving the efforts of a powerful AI called Wintermute to merge with its AI counterpart Neuromancer to form a super AI. For a minute there, I thought I was reading out the plot of The Matrix. Efforts have been ongoing for years to bring Neuromancer and its complex story to the big screen, and now Fox has settled on Tim Miller as the man to direct their adaptation, with Simon Kinberg producing. Gibson's book has previously been adapted as a graphic novel, a video game, BBC radio play, and an opera. I'm mildly interested in this one. I've never read Neuromancer, didn't know it was a thing, but now that I know it is a thing, I'm going to go back and read it, I think. The only cyberpunk I know is Ghost in the Shell, Akira, and of course The Matrix. It'll be neat to see where it all started and how they do the movie. Also, Tim Miller is developing a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and as someone who watched the cartoon back in Germany many years ago, I'm not really sure what to do with this information. Talking of books into movies, Octavia Butler's sci-fi novel Dawn is becoming a TV series. I could have sworn I read this book back in junior high. This is the first time any of the author's material has been turned into a series. The 1987 book is the first in her Lilith's Brood trilogy, along with Adulthood Rights and Imago. Dawn tells the story of an African-American woman named Lilith who wakes up 250 years after a nuclear war has left the Earth uninhabitable, along with a race of aliens called the Onkali. Lilith works to rebuild the human race. I swear I've read this book. According to Deadline, the Dawn adaptation will be a joint venture between director and producer Ava DuVernay, director-writer Victoria Mahoney, and Charles D. King's media company Macro. DuVernay and King will executive produce the series with a script by Mahoney. They will also be joined by producer Alan Bain, who has been working on bringing Butler's work to the big screen. I need to reread this book. My brain is tripping out over the cover. Also, Ava DuVernay is my hero, and I'm totally on board for this show, no matter what capacity. And finally, Netflix has picked up the Coen brothers' Ballad of Buster Scruggs TV series. After assembling a cast of lead actors for the new show, fans of the Coen brothers have plenty to look forward to. With season 4 of Fargo TV series potentially years away, it appears that the next Coen brothers production for the small screen will be the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, and Netflix is distributing it. In a joint statement, the Coen brothers proclaimed, "We are streaming, mother fluffers." In a move that will see the high-caliber directors join the ranks of those like the Wachowski sisters, Netflix had this to say about their newest show. The Coens are visionary directors, masterful storytellers, and colorful linguists. We are thrilled for Netflix to become a home to the full range of their talents. Sweet! Now, what's the Ballad of Buster Scruggs exactly? And that's it for this week's Quick Flicks. I'll see you guys next time on the Weekly Podioplex.
Thank you, Denise. And here we are once again at the end of a new edition of the Weekly Podioplex. If you want to discuss anything you heard on this week's edition, we would love to hear from you. You can surf on over to the Chronic Rift homepage at chronicrift.com and leave an audio message right there on the website using your microphone. You can also write an email or send an MP3 to weeklypodioplex@gmail.com. If 140 characters or less is more your thing, you can still tweet us on Twitter. The Chronic Rift is chronic_rift. The Weekly Podioplex is Weekly Podioplex. Denise is Riley James Keith. And I am Womprat99, like the creature Luke with Bullseye in his T16 in Beggar's Canyon. You can give the Chronic Rift a thumbs up on Stitcher Radio, leave us a review on iTunes, and you can find the Weekly Podioplex and the Chronic Rift on Facebook. The usual disclaimer applies, of course. If you leave us feedback, you may hear your words on a future edition of the Weekly Podioplex. Take a moment, stop on by, and see what other shows the Chronic Rift Network has to offer. We have Cyborgs, a bionic podcast, the Batcave podcast, the OSI Files podcast, the G2V podcast, Generations Geek, presenting the transcription feature, the Dan and Travis Show, the Sci-Fi Diner podcast, Doctor Who and Mr. Drew, the Home Game Show version podcast, and so much more. If you have a Roku player, you can treat it like a time machine and find us there on the Chronic Rifts Roku channel, where you can find episodes of the Chronic Rifts adventures in the 1990s, when it was a public access television show on the New York City airwaves. Check us out and find the culture in pop culture. If you're interested in more of my adventures, take a quick trip to my blog, Creative Criticality, where I'm watching every episode of Doctor Who for the first time from the very beginning of that franchise, and reviewing those tales in the Timestamps Project. Right now, the blog has just wrapped up the 19th season, the first season with the 5th Doctor, and those reviews can be found at creativecriticality.wordpress.com. You can also find Creative Criticality on Facebook. Denise can also be found on the internet at Accessories Not Included, where she talks about her writing, reviews books, and offers her services as a cover designer. Check her out at accessoriesnotincluded.com. If you decide to pick up any of this week's new releases, why not do it through our Amazon store? You get the newest entertainment at Amazon's low prices and high-quality service, and each purchase you make at that store supports the Chronic Rift Network. Your support keeps us on the air, and we appreciate your consideration. Look for the links to our best bets and the network store in our show notes, or click the Amazon box on the website. The Weekly Podioplex is a Lucky Shot production and is produced by John S. Drew. On behalf of Denise and John, this is Michael Faulkner. Thank you for listening. Until next time, there are adventures and drama, comedy and action, worlds to explore in the depths of film. Get some popcorn, find your favorite seat, and I'll see you at the theater.
That's a wrap!